Hello everyone and welcome back to the Off the Record podcast. I am Taylor.
I am Dan.
Indeed. We've got some slightly worrying but slightly interesting news stories to go over today. But first of all, Dan, how are you?
I'm all good, mate, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, despite watching loads of Gary Stevenson clips on YouTube.
Yeah, it does he's sort of like a righteous harbinger of doom, isn't he?
I like him.
I like him.
I really like him, but he's got a very interesting... Because obviously he's all statistics. So he's like, unless you're born into wealth, you cannot succeed. But he's not saying that it's impossible, but he's just telling people not to expect success. But I think the message should just be fucking work hard. Like if that's what you're looking for, he can't help that, can he?
No. I'm just saying you can hear it, so you might want to say your point again. Yeah.
It just seems like the wrong message for especially for the people that are going to be watching his content. A lot of them are watching him, and even he said it. He gets messages constantly saying, "How do I get rich?" So the people that are observing him clearly have an interest in acquiring wealth. And if the answer for doing it is work your tits off and learn from your mistakes and speak to people that have done it and acquire more knowledge, it's the way he's just saying, well, no, you fucked. Amazing. And I'm just like, that's very odd to hear from someone that, in theory, had no chance and goes and does it. And it's like, well, there's always a way, mate. You've just got to work it out if that's really what you... But yeah, I'm all good despite the fact his impending doom and negativity. I'd love to be on his podcast. I'd love to have a chat with him, just as a general guy. Seems like a fucking sound bloke.
Be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's... I was watching Matt Armstrong. You know him? The guy who fixes up like crash damaged cars.
Heard of him?
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a new slogan that I saw. It might not be that new, but it was new to me. And it's HWBT. And it stands for Hard Work Beats Talent.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I kind of rate that.
Yeah.
He is sort of inadvertently admitting he's an idiot in doing that, but fair play.
Yeah. I mean, Jesus. But yeah.
No, I rate him. He's very content genius. Matt Armstrong.
There you go.
Shout out.
Not an idiot.
No, not at all. No, I'm not saying he's calling, but, it's sort of backhandedly, it does admit that you have no talent.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
How have you been, Tay?
Yeah, sound. I made pasta in a drawer.
You literally told me that this morning. I was like, what's going on? You got to explain that now, because that makes that sentence, I made pasta in a drawer, that makes even less sense than what you actually did.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it there.
No, come on. Oh yeah, go on then. We'll just see if people are intrigued. Like, what the fuck does he mean? Pasta in a drawer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't waste my evenings.
No, let's get the comments going. Let's get them going, people.
So, first up was a news story I actually heard about this morning.
Oh,
when I was in bed.
Fresh news.
Indeed.
Oh my God.
US demands that EU companies comply with anti-diversity order.
Okay.
US President Donald Trump has repeatedly taken aim at diversity, equity and inclusion, otherwise known as DEI, programs in the US, especially in government offices, claiming that they were discriminatory. The fucking irony.
That's interesting.
The US government has sent a letter to major EU corporations demanding that they adhere to an executive order signed by US President Donald Trump banning diversity, equity and inclusion programs, according to the Financial Times. This letter, distributed by the American Embassy in Paris, among others, highlighted that the DEI executive order applied to the US government service providers and suppliers, even if they were based outside the US.
You can't.
I was just like, does he, has he watched Titanic and now thinks he's king of the world or something? Because you can't implement, the fact that it says a US executive order sort of lends itself to where it's applicable. And I wonder what your thoughts were on him, let's say, overreaching.
That's an understatement, really, isn't it? If we're going to be quite frank about it. The bit that I love, and I don't love it as in because it's good, I mean because it's laughable, is that if any He's such a hypocrite. If any other country put that stipulation to him, what would his response be?
Yeah.
He would go, no, not a chance, we're America. Mate, treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And if you wouldn't accept another country's stipulations based on what suits their fucking country and their policies, then well, how can you tell another country to do that? I mean, well, actually, I take that back. You can. But if you get zero trade off the back of it, then congratulations, sir. I mean, you've just sunk your own ship. Why would you...
Yeah.
He's mental.
This comes after he's just imposed tariffs on most of the world.
Yes,
if they were going to listen to you, they're definitely not listening to you now.
No. It's such a... The problem is it's such a big topic, the whole, like, diversity regulations and stuff. And it is so tricky. I can tell you from first hand, like when I was 18, 19 and doing our first recruitment campaign, this is genuinely true, by the way. Despite the fact that I had a shop in what was like a 98% white British area, I didn't consider that statistic. And I was more concerned about the perception of society on me as an employer if I didn't have people from different like colours, creeds, backgrounds, etc. That I'd basically, through societal messages, that became my kind of priority. I was like, I need to recruit people that aren't white British. Well, that is, by definition... oh God, words, Dan. Discrimination. Thank you. Yeah, it's discriminatory. So it's like, it is weird how society have done this. Or not, I said have, as if it's like one unit of people, but how the media have like pushed this point along to the point where I imagine there's loads of other business owners or even sports team owners and things where they're like, oh, I need inclusivity. I need to have diversity within my organisation. And I want that because I believe it would breed a better environment, like in general, like, in terms of gender diversity, etc., etc. Whatever the preference, the colour, the creed doesn't make the man. It doesn't make the human being. Like, there's more to it than that. You can't base anything. I mean, there are some sort of generalisable statistics, but I'm not Jordan Peterson. I don't know the numbers. I'm not going to start throwing them out there. But overall, it's a very, very hard topic. And the fact that Trump and his political party have said, right, we're going to go down this road. This is the road that suits us and our country. And we think there's going to be a huge economical benefit by doing it this way. All right, your choice, fair fucks. I'm not here to say otherwise. I'm not digging into the data. But then, to try and stipulate that another country's got to follow your preference, I'm fucking... It's just, it's ego at its finest. It is the ultimate display of an egomaniac and a narcissist going, I make my rules, but that's not quite enough. I now want to make yours. And I don't want you to have fucking freedom of choice, but I want my MAGA to have all of the choices, but as long as it suits America. I mean, fuck me, man.
I mean, I don't like the wording of how they've put it, which is anti-DEI, because that sounds like it's intentionally discriminatory. Do you know what I mean? That I disagree with. However, my sticking point with DEI as a concept is when I don't agree. Funnily enough, you brought up Jordan Peterson, and he does make this point, although I thought it before I heard it from him. It is insane to me that you should be obligated to fill a quota when it's an industry that relies on a meritocracy. Something like, let's just take one of the really, really dominated ones, engineering. Engineering is something like 90 or 95% male. Now, by definition then, if the pool is 95% male, but you need a 50-50 split of the genders, for just taking gender as the first thing, by definition, you're pulling from a worse pool simply because there's less people in it. That's not to say that all of the women of the 5% aren't as good as some of the men. Of course they will be. But if you need the same number from each pool, it's going to bring down the quality of what you can achieve by doing that. Now, I don't believe in that. Do you know what I mean? If you deserve to be there, you should be there. That's how I think it should run. You shouldn't have a biased advantage, even if the qualifications of the person, even if it's the same person on paper. To me, they should have the same chance. They shouldn't get more chance because you're of African descent, or you're Asian, or that shouldn't be an advantage. In the same way, it shouldn't be a disadvantage.
Of course.
It should be a level playing field, which is where I struggle with some of the... When DEI was a bit more archaic and it was literally a quota. I mean, I've got first-hand experience of this. My brother is a firefighter, and I'm not going to name anything about it because he'd get in trouble. Not my brother, the guy I'm going to talk about. They only take on so many full-time firefighters. Yeah, that one. Per year, and they had a quota, literally a quota, and a higher up of indeterminate rank came to my brother and said, "You're top of your class, but I'm going to be honest with you, you're not going to get taken on. If you really want to get taken on, I suggest you tell him you're bi or gay."
What?
Genuinely, that's what he said. I'm not okay. Allegedly, I'm not gonna make any. Just in case people do know where I live and where he works, because I'm not gonna. He doesn't work at the same place anymore. But yeah, that was mad to me. That he was top of his class, or top of his graduating, whatever you want to call it, in the sort of academy, and he was told he wasn't going to get a job because he was the wrong colour or the wrong sexuality, because he's white and straight. Basically, and that again, I'm not saying that he again should have an advantage based on either of those metrics. He should have an advantage based on the fact he was the best at his job.
Yeah,
and that's where I struggle with the inclusion thing.
Why? This has really baffled me, and maybe it's because I'm just too black and white. Maybe I'm undiagnosed, but there's definitely a little touch of autism rolling around in here. Do you know what I mean? I'm good with
mega
that.
Dose.
Yeah, mega dose. But I don't understand. I genuinely do not understand why a person's sexual preference has got anything to do with their work, unless their work is having sex with people. I'm serious. I don't.
But even then, why does it matter? It's their choice. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the point being, if you are gay and you're being asked to have sex in a heterosexual form, that doesn't suit your preference. Do you see what I'm saying? But so then it's relevant. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, I only say it because there was a
piece there.
How do I say it? Mattress actress.
Yeah.
One of them. Who is gay, but does
straight stuff,
heterosexual stuff. So I'm like, if it's your choice, you do what you want. But
yeah, that's my point.
Yeah,
but why does somebody working in Parliament what? You're not utilising that one characteristic of your life for your job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
so why is it relevant?
You see it quite a lot, don't you, where they justify it by saying that people like to see someone who's the same as them.
Oh,
I'm like, we're not 5.
Some people, mate, some people.
How far does that go?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Should I be offended that there's not enough fat people in Parliament? Or do you really, how far does it go?
Yeah.
I don't want a fireman turning up who can't get up the fucking ladder without puffing out of his ass just because he looks like me. No, I'm all right.
Yeah.
I'm all right. Get some fucking Channing Tatum looking dickhead to get up there and fucking save me sharpish.
That's so good. That's so good. Started with fucking mattress actress onto Channing Tatum looking dickhead. That is amazing. I love this shit.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I don't. But in the same way, I do love the thought that Trump is trying to approach far more progressive nations like France, for example. I know we bring them up a lot, but he's trying to say to France, no, you can't do this. You can't tell the French not to do shit.
No,
they're stubborn.
Yeah,
they are
good.
And rightly so, I think. And they did come up. I couldn't find the actual quotes from like the foreign ministers and ambassadors and stuff, but they all kicked off, and I'm like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But
I'm so glad that Trump's gone from being some disgusting, like, just property magnate to a disgusting politician, and that now he is like giving us gold. Like, we've just got, as human beings, granted, I'm only laughing because he's not the president of my country. It's gonna impact me in my country, of course it is. I'm not fucking stupid, but I'm glad I'm not an American citizen with him at the helm. Like, okay, economically he's going to fix your shit, but he is going to break a lot of stuff in the process. But it is
I
comedy gold.
I wonder if he is actually going to fix it, because I saw a quote, and I can't remember who by last night, and it said, inadvertently, Trump has become the most unifying president in the history of America, but the wrong way. So he's, Japan, China, and I think it was Vietnam or someone like that, are now working together, and setting up trade deals, which was unheard of before, for microchips that they were buying from Silicon Valley, because that's, that's the forefront of it. They're now working with different. So you've got all these new alliances that are popping up that originally would run through America that are now cutting the middleman out effectively.
Oh.
And also, it came out in the last 15 minutes or so. I saw it as we were just about to sit down. That some of the American, I don't know if it's Trump himself or some of the American officials are kicking up a fuss that now the European military industry, so the production of weapons and vehicles and such, is really picking up steam, because a lot of it, through NATO and everything like that, was American up till now. But they've made their bed by saying that they insinuated that there was a kill switch in the F-35 that could be triggered from America. So, like, if people who were using American weapons turned on America, they could just turn them off. I'm like, well, okay. I don't think it's true.
No, I'm pretty sure.
But the fact they insinuated it is going to raise a lot of red flags. And there was all this different stuff where they were attacking. They've insulted so many of the countries in Europe and around the world, but in Europe specifically, and stuff like that. And they thought that they were going to continue funding their economy. No. There's plenty of good weapons manufacturers. It just so happened that America was probably the best one.
Yeah.
But, you've got plenty around Europe that, so like the Swiss and the Austrians, they make some of the best guns in the world. And the British make amazing, fighter jets and tanks, and that will rival anything America can make.
Just can't make the same volume.
No, they can't make the same volume. But if it's the case of you wait 6 months longer for your weapons, or you support that twat, I think I know what most of the world's going to choose.
Thing is, when you need a tank, you kind of need it now. You don't. If you get that 6 months later.
I mean,
bye.
5 years ago, you'd have tapped up Putin, but I don't think we really can do that anymore.
No.
So, but no, I think, yeah.
Good first.
But the collective forces of Europe would rival America's military anyway, I think.
Yeah.
That's a good I know individually they're not that strong, but is it quality over quantity, as we've seen multiple times with the British Army when they do war games with America.
Yeah.
I don't think the Americans win very often, but yeah.
Who knows?
Interesting.
It's a very good first story. There we go.
We will come back to Trump, but I can't do two Trump things in a row. Ruin my morning.
He's about to ruin a lot of people's lives.
It's a good thing we're not American then. British authors absolutely sick to discover books are on Shadow Library allegedly used by Meta to train AI.
Shadow Library? What's that?
Tech giant Meta is being sued by a group of authors in the US accused of breaching copyright laws by using prominent so-called Shadow Library, LibGen, to develop its AI software. Meta has denied the claim and argues that the case should be thrown out. British authors have told Sky News that they have felt absolutely sick to see their book titles appear in a Shadow Library allegedly used by tech giant Meta to help develop artificial intelligence. Now, I read that and was like, I had never even considered how they train AI. Because I know a lot of them, they just trawl things, don't they? And they'll go through, I know you can get AI to watch videos and pick up things like that, and voices and looks and things like that. But it's a very good point. I'd never considered how they train, ChatGPT, for example. I mean, this is Meta AI, for example. But and the fact that there's just a load of books written by authors from around the world and they're just reading them, I thought that was a bit weird.
What? I mean, because I just made the assumption that all these AI tools were coded to be able to read any and all data available online. Well, if that's the case, then every book probably is somewhere online, within reason. within
Yeah.
reason, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's going to be books down in the Vatican that aren't because they've been locked away for 400 years.
Yeah, we know
get
why,
it.
you sneaky little cunt.
Oh God! But yeah, I'm struggling to see what the problem is with that because, of course, AI by definition is going to trawl and read and find out data and acknowledge it, absorb it, understand it if it can. So why do the authors mind?
Well, I think it's the case of they may not agree with Meta as a business because Zuckerberg is a very contentious figure.
Yeah.
And that their life's work, potentially it could be, their life's work is being used simply as a resource to aid the betterment of a company that they disagree with. Should they have a right not to have that happen?
Yeah, just don't put your books online.
Well, yeah, there's that case, but, it may be the case of that they didn't.
Oh.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I
of course.
haven't read more, but, it may just have been copywritten because they used a certain section of the book market or something like that. They were training a very specific part or something like that. It's not to say, I suppose it wouldn't be a consideration, would it? Because it's such a recent thing. If that book's 15 years old,
it was already out.
It was there, and there was no consideration that it may be used for that. And I don't think people should be obligated to help out a multi-billion-pound business with their work like that. I think it should, if they're going to use it, it should be licensed. And it should be, they should have a transactional relationship with it. No problem if they want to let them use it, fine. But they should be getting a kickback from it because it's going to earn Meta a lot of money.
That's interesting. I mean, there's absolutely no way of redistributing any revenue. It'd be too big a task. It's an incredible and unbelievable task that AI is even now a thing.
Yeah.
The fact that exists in 2025 is crazy. I wrote a fucking sales plan the other day on the thing, and it's perfect. It knew my brand. It knew things like it is incredible. But if you were then going to try and push this software, this system to progress society through technology, which is what the purpose of it is technically, from my understanding, bearing in mind I'm not coding the things and I don't know what the creator's intentions were, but fundamentally it will make life a lot smoother and more economical than what it currently is. It's currently a clunky form because we're using memory, like human memory, rather than coded, calculated memory. So if you then say, okay, we want to keep pushing this form, we like AI, we think AI is going to be a good thing, this is how we're going to make it run, but fairly, economically and in a capitalist kind of way. I don't know how you create a plan. I mean, you'd have to ask AI. I was going to say, I don't know how you create a plan on how you redistribute the wealth fairly, because I don't think there is a way. Because it read, say, Moby Dick, what can it take from that that's then going to be financially beneficial to a user of AI? I'm trying to... How do you make it proportionate and accurate and fair? I don't think it's... If it is possible, it would take too long because you would just slow everything right down again.
Well, I disagree with that. I think that everyone should be given their worth. I think...
How?
Yeah, but you say that about any new industry that comes out. It's very difficult, especially if it's a service, where how much is that worth to someone? Because, chimney sweeping 150 years ago...
Had a bit of value.
Would be worth a lot of money. Chimney sweeping now, probably not so much. So does that mean that the value has decreased? Does it mean... You see where I'm coming from? Is that because it's a new industry, there's a lot of question marks about it. And because it's this ethereal thing that doesn't really exist but does, it is very difficult to nail down a worth to it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that should then just be a catch-all for saying, well... we don't know what it's worth, therefore you don't get anything. It's still their work. They still should be compensated for the work they put in, even if it's the case of it's just letting an AI read it. Do you know what I mean? I think it may be like a Spotify thing where it's not that much money singularly,
just a royalty.
But if multiple use it and they use it more than once, and there's implementations from what they've used, they then do get a minimal kickback from it.
That'd be nice.
You get movie royalties for years. A friend of a friend was in a Harry Potter film, and he's still getting kickbacks now.
Yeah,
it's like that news story. My nan's a big fan of Cliff Richard,
cool.
And there's you can imagine how fun my childhood was. And there was a story where, because copyright has a sell-by date, effectively, of I think 70 years, 60 years?
Depends.
Something like that. This is music specifically.
Yeah.
60 years or 70 years. And he went to court to say, well, that's wrong. It shouldn't. It's still my... And I did struggle with that because, if I do a piece of work now, should I still have the right to claim money from that 60 years in the future? Once it's... Do you know what I mean? It's a tricky sort of thing, isn't it? Because I know it's slightly different because it's music. But if I produce, the posters... We did some posters back in the day. And if one of them started selling really well and really consistently and became like... Should I still be expecting to be paid for that in 60 years' time?
I think the answer is depends on the terms of the agreement.
Yeah.
I know it's a shit answer because it's not absolute, it's not clear cut, but I think that's the point. There's a lot of people here that create I say here, I mean on this planet, that create open... In fact, there's only people on this planet, to the best of our knowledge. What a shit statement. There's... Oh, fuck, I've completely lost my trail of thought now doing that. I just caught myself out of my own nonsense. Absolutely.
There's people on this planet who...
Sorry. They create like open source things, so they don't care about a financial kickback. So it's like, are you going to say that those people have to be financially benefiting from something that they intended to try and give back to society? And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where, a lot of modern day poets, script writers and stuff, they might create an incredible play that just gets left for 10 years or whatever. They send it through to some sort of creative house and they don't use it straight away. They then stumble through the records, find this thing again, and then want to utilize it. Now, in that circumstance, that is still the creation of an artist, and they deserve their rewards. Yeah. But this is why we have, and I remember being fucking 21 years old, going to distributors in my industry with a distribution agreement, 36 pages long, which is standard. Like, it's not like, oh my god, what is this? And not one of them. And I was 21, bearing in mind, not one of them had ever seen a distribution agreement. I was speaking to people in their late 30s, 50s, 60s. We don't sign things like this. This kind of general practice, this is an outcome of a century of business. Like, this document exists because we've gone through problems. Yeah. There's been too many people sued for nonsense, and this prevents that from happening, or it makes it a fairer playing field. And they're just like, no, I don't want that agreement. But you don't even know what the fucking agreement is. Read it, go through it, and then we negotiate. This is the purpose of business negotiation, and it counts for all aspects of life, not just business. Consumer to business contracts, i.e. your purchase. That's a contract. Whether you like it or not, that's what it is. So, yeah, this is a very, very tricky one. The AI one in particular, only because I can see what the benefits are for small businesses like mine. And if all of a sudden I've got to start paying through the nose to use these services, then the benefit of AI isn't really there so much. Okay, I can get things done quicker. That's brilliant. Love that. But if I've got to pay a lot for it, yeah, this is a very, very tricky subject.
I think when it comes to art specifically, and I know AI doesn't fall under that umbrella, but just carrying on the point,
should do.
There's a real world example actually. I was watching a podcast by Benny Blanco, if you know who that is.
I've heard of Benny Blanco.
He's a songwriter basically. He's worked with Ed Sheeran, Maroon 5, Rihanna, massive, probably the biggest songwriter in the world at the minute. And do you know the song Animals by Maroon 5?
Oh, yes,
that one.
That's perfect.
Cutting that
pitch,
out,
by the way. Perfect pitch.
That song was 8 years old by the time it came out. He wrote that 8 years before it ever
got released.
Got released and picked up by Maroon 5 and sung by them. And I think the bit where I fall down is, we'll go back to Cliff Richard, for example. So he wrote songs back in the 50s, that are coming up 70 years old now. Should there still be a kickback when the original artist dies?
Where does the kickback go? To his family?
But this is what I mean. I don't, I can almost see his argument for, because it was work I did, there's still although smaller, there's still a demand for it.
Yeah.
Therefore I should but should there then be passed on to a record label, a family member, after the artist is dead because of the length of time. I'm not talking about, if a song went to number one and is still at number one, then the artist dies when the demand is still at its highest. But I mean after the expiration, in quotation marks, of the copyright, should it be passed on? Because then it opens a can of worms of, well, who owns Mozart's music? Because that is technically public domain now.
Yeah,
because it's that old. That's why you see it in so many like YouTube videos and TV shows, and that is because you can license it for free. So then, does that mean then that someone can just buy up, in quotation marks again, Mozart's music and get a kickback from something they had nothing to do with?
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? It's because if Cliff Richard had won that court case, which I don't believe he did, that then opens a can of worms and sets a precedent that can be very dangerous.
In theory, yeah,
it could cause massive, massive issues, and we're already seeing issues, with the Ed Sheeran lawsuit with the estate of Marvin Gaye, and fair play to Ed Sheeran, he swallowed his pride and he actually performed in the courtroom, and said you can't own a chord progression because he said if you set the precedent that Marvin Gaye owns this chord progression, what happens to the songs that I've just given you that were written before that song? Yeah. Are they retrospectively breaking copyright? Because that's not a thing.
You can't. I was going to say, legislation, you have to factor in that legislation changes. And that's you can't factor in the future. No. I understand that you can look at your past actions and try and make amendments and make better choices moving forward, but to try and use foresight to create legislation when you don't know what the lay of the land is going to be, it's an impossible task, really. I think, so for me, in the specific case of Cliff Richards, the guy's alive, right? If he lives in the Algarve nowadays, he sells his own...
man's been to his house.
Sells his own brand of wine. I've seen it in Albufeira, Greece. Anyway, the fact that he's still alive and he's got family that's still alive, I think in that circumstance, the fact that he's alive to sign a new document, he should be able to, considering current legislation, create another safety net. Like, you can get a 999-year lease in the UK. Nobody's ever around, obviously, for that long to see it out. So there has to be a progression of where that lease gets passed to, which is organisationally. So through entities, not through individuals, because an entity can last longer than a person can. Obviously, it doesn't live. So I think in that circumstance, where someone's already alive and there's current legislation, if the legislation's about to change, that artist and the family estate should be given a call and said, right, this needs to be addressed. Two solicitors sit together with the artist and the other party, or government, whatever, and they create an agreement based on post-death situations. I think that makes most sense, and it has to be done on a case-by-case basis.
I mean, yeah, I admit I'm a bit biased because I know the amount of red tape it takes to license songs and things like that as a video editor and stuff like that. It's very difficult and very expensive. So, I mean, I know I'm coming at a point of bias where it would be nice if more songs were available, fell into the public domain, because it's... sorry, side note before we move on. Yeah. Did you know that, I don't know if it's just in America or everywhere, that people of public interest, when they die, their name goes into the public domain?
What do you mean? Is it that you can buy their name?
You can't buy it, but you can use it. So, like, there's a brewery in America called Sam Adams, who was, I don't know if he was a founding father or a very early sort of politician-y type in America. And Conan O'Brien went there and said, well, how did you get the rights to use... Because that's a real guy. So how did you... And he just said, public domain. Once they die, it's their name goes into the public domain. And anyone can use it.
So I can use Michael Jackson's name?
I don't know how it works with more recent, because I'm talking about someone who died in the 1700s. But it's, I thought that was really interesting how someone's identity can be public domain, which is why I don't know if you've noticed recently, and I don't know if this is a case of it's been licensed, but there's a lot of companies now using Albert Einstein's likeness in adverts
U-Switch and
stuff like that. Yeah,
not U-Switch, one of the energy companies.
One of those, and there was a couple more as well that I noticed were using him. So I wonder if there's a time limit on it. I wish I'd looked, but I didn't think we'd get onto, we'd get this far into the point. But I wonder if there's a time limit on it, because he died, in the 1930s, 40s?
I think it
something
was.
Something like that. So that's been, 80 years. So I wonder...
thing is, they used his likeness,
Yeah.
which is a bit like, it's clever. Because again, with like commercial contracts, there's so much terminology that at the beginning of every single contract, there's a definition of terms. Like, and they can vary from contract to contract. It could be the same word, same spelling, same meaning, but this organisation have utilised it in a different way and put a different definition to it. So, like with the Albert thing, they refer to him as Albert. And yeah, he looks clearly like Albert Einstein. So we, as consumers and people who have seen his picture, we put two and two together, we get Albert Einstein. But actually what they've done is they've got an old boy that's got funny hair and a tash, and they've called him Albert and given him an Austrian accent. It's like, it's obviously trying to be him, we all can see that, but it isn't them saying, this is Albert Einstein, he supports this energy brand, he believes that we're the best,
Yeah.
There's so many variables with this, and this is why this is one of the things I really hate about modern day capitalism business, is that there's just so many specific points that keep changing depending on recent law cases and lawsuits. So you don't even know what game you're playing. You don't know what the rules are to the fucking game. There's no way. The only people who do are commercial lawyers, because they've fucking trained in it for 7 years. They're the only people that actually know. That's why when you see any program with lawyers or like legal businesses, they've always got rooms filled with bookshelves, but from volume 1 to 22. And it's like, within those books are actual cases. And how that now changes precedents in law.
Yeah, case law. Yeah.
Yeah, they're crazy, but interesting. Very interesting one, that.
Mad one. Tennessee versus Ghana.
There we go. What's that?
That's a weird one. Where police are allowed to shoot people in the back
Oh, right.
if they're running away.
Wow.
Yeah,
Aim for the fucking legs. Stop them running.
Now, my all-time favourite news source, because it was the only one I could see that was reporting it.
Oh, God.
GB News.
Oh, God.
Let's get ready for some absolute dross.
Here we go.
Europe backtracks on emissions rules in move that could destroy electric vehicle sales growth.
God.
This is by Felix Reeves,
Go on,
who
Felix.
looks like the moon emoji, but with hair.
God, he actually does.
He does, yeah.
That's a bit reminiscent of my dead Down syndrome uncle, to be fair.
Does he like grilled cheeses? The European Commission has proposed extending the compliance period for EU's 2025 CO2 emissions targets from 1 to 3 years, giving automakers until 2027 to meet the requirements. The proposal published on Tuesday would allow car manufacturers to base their compliance on average emissions over the 2025 to 2027 period rather than just 2025. European car makers have requested relief from the targets, which require selling more electric vehicles in a market they are struggling against Chinese and US competitors. Now, I brought this up because obviously we were talking about this, the implementation of electric cars a couple of weeks ago. And I think that this is proof that the sort of industry is realising that the case is how we talked about it, where the infrastructure just isn't ready.
No, it's not.
The government and EU and all that can set as many targets as they want, but if they're not gonna make the moves that lead to it being a convenience, which is effectively what cars are, if you boil it down to its bare bones, then it's simply not going to work, and people aren't going to take it up. And I wouldn't be amazed to see if new car sales are dropping because of the people just buying used cars because there's less reliance on electricity or electric cars, or it's bringing it back to Matt Armstrong. Actually, he took on his first hybrid car recently. And that man, didn't look like he was having fun. So, I think that, this is almost an admission by the people who set that target that it was unrealistic and that they can't meet their own quota, let alone, what the environment actually needs.
Of course.
So,
Well, the biggest conundrum, the bit that currently lets electric vehicles down, obviously the massive benefit over a fuel-based car, so petrol, diesel, is that you can charge it at home. You can fill it at your home address. You can't do that with a petrol car, obviously, unless you've got barrels and barrels of fucking fuel, then fair play. But the other conundrum is that if you flip that and say, okay, well, 60 to 70% of the UK population live in the first floor flats and above, they can't have access to an electric charging point, potentially, right? If that were the case, then you've got to say, okay, then if currently most petrol stations in the UK have got, say, between 4 and 10 charging points, while they've got between 6 and 15 petrol pumps, the biggest difference right now is the time it takes to refuel. I can refuel my car, which has got quite a big fuel tank, in about 2.5 minutes, roughly. The average charge time to get you back on the road to reach your destination for an electric vehicle is 30 minutes to an hour. Well, that doesn't work.
No.
You can't, if you've got a place to be in a certain time frame, okay, you can factor in an extra half an hour, but if your journey's 400 miles, and there's currently not an electric vehicle that can do it in one trip, you're up shit creek. The country comes to a standstill is what happens. So it's not, it's been thought through by very clever people, but the infrastructural aspect of it is just not ready. Like anybody who wants to say otherwise either has the wealth to be able to have their own charger at home, or they just don't need to be doing long range journeys.
Yeah, and I think this brings it back to what I've said. I've said this in the past, so apologies, but I can only see this working when it either becomes diesel electric, like trains, where it's driven by an electric motor, but there is a diesel generator. And there's very few cars that do that. There's only one I can think of, which is a Fisker Karma. You've ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah. Why do you know that?
Because I used to watch Top Gear.
Okay.
Because it's far more efficient use of fuel, because it's only ever ticking over. And it solves the range issue, and it solves the charging issue, because it's charged by the generator, not by an external source. So I can see that working in the same way that I think hydrogen is realistically the future once it's been worked out properly.
Yeah, to not have a bomb.
Well, it's more about storing it, isn't it? Because you have to store it in a weird way and things like that. And there are a few hydrogen filling pumps. They do exist, but I think there's 3 in London. Yeah. So it's like if you live in Croydon and it's in Knightsbridge, you're a bit fucked.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. So again, it's an infrastructure thing, but I don't know why you would put if you had the money to implement certain things, because it's going to cost trillions of pounds, over a period of years because realistically you're going to need a charging point in every parking space. That's really the only way it can work, because it's the only way that people are going to be able to do the journeys that they need to do. Alternatively, obviously, there's the electrified roads thing that they were going to do. Yeah, the underfloor. Yeah, I think they're testing it somewhere, but
Cali probably. It
seems to me that there are easier. Yes, not quite as absolute in there, but then where does the electricity come from? It's not coming from space, is it? This is the thing. We're still too reliant on the fuel on fossil fuels and
power grids.
And power grids, exactly, to produce the electricity. If you want to be truly, because it's just going to put more strain on the production of electricity, which uses fossil fuels in the same way that cars. Yes, okay, it probably won't be the same, but it's still not a perfect answer. Whereas I think, looking at the lesser of two evils, I think that minimising the amount of fuel used in a particular trip, like a diesel electric, is surely a far more efficient way of doing it.
Well, it's a relevant stopgap, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're going to look to try and create a solution similar to, Apple, though, theirs is a commercial absolute scam. But if you understand and appreciate the fact that it's going to take, say, 3 years of science to hit the goal that you're aiming for, you can release versions in between that. The only conundrum is you've got to have specific machinery. The machinery costs a fortune to build and design. And then if you're going to make it just completely irrelevant in 3 years' time, that's not sustainable. You'd have to be creating machinery that's like a Lego system, where you can take that piece and then put it onto the next machine that you're going to need, rather than having all this metal and equipment or assets basically just get chucked into the sea because they're pointless. Yeah. So it's a very interesting one, this. And I don't know what the answer is, but let's see what governments do.
Yeah.
Let's see what VW do.
The reliance on lithium, man, is ridiculous.
Fucking cobalt, man. It's awful. Awful
Right.
things. What have we got
Let's
now?
talk about the fluffy orange man again.
Let's go, Donald. Come on, Duck.
So what I thought would be interesting is to look at how I found a news story which is sort of the reaction of multiple countries to the tariffs, because I thought it'd be interesting to see who's bent the knee like a little bitch.
Wow. Some of them have no choice, mate.
So yeah, I know. This is the thing. I'm just amazed that collectively there's some massive countries and massive economic superpowers on here who I'm amazed have just gone, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So China. China has been hit particularly hard by the new tariffs. Shock. Which take the total levy on Chinese imports to over 50%.
What? So, and by the way, with these imports, how does this work? So the value of the consignment is taxed at 50%. Where's that 50% levy coming in? What is it on? Do we know?
I think.
So it is the value of the goods.
Yeah.
Fuck me, 50%.
Yeah. China's Commerce Ministry called for Washington to immediately cancel the tariffs, warning they endanger global economic development and would hurt U.S. interests and international supply chains. There is no winner in a trade war, and there is no way out for protectionism. Beijing has promised countermeasures.
Here we go. Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's all going to come back to bite them in the ass.
It's the whole my dad's stronger than your dad bollocks.
It is. It's just an international pissing contest.
Literally, because it's not even a contest. It's been triggered by one person, and the problem is they've then stipulated the rules of engagement. Well, what do you want them to do? Of course, fucking Beijing are going to come back and say, okay, you're going to penalise me and my economy and my people by X. Here comes the reverse, equal and opposite reaction. You're going to get fucked back. Well done.
I've got to read this next bit simply for the name, because...
Oh, God. Here we go.
Sounds like one of your exes. The US will impose a 34% tariff on Chinese goods on top of the 20% they had already imposed last year. Dan's ex, Wang Wen, Dean of Renmin University Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies, that's a fucking mouthful, said China had become accustomed to the tariffs over the past 7 years, but the high tariffs have not reduced the US-China bilateral trade volume as well as China's trade surplus with the US. Yeah.
So in other words, what she's saying is that the tariffs have created an adverse effect on America.
Yeah, bad. Well, that's exactly what they're going to do, because they're not paid by the country, they're paid by the American consumer.
I've never seen you do that.
Fucking thick cunts, honestly. I was going to try not to swear in this one, but he brings it out of me.
Okay, yeah.
The UK. Donald Trump has hit the UK with tariffs of 10%.
Manageable.
You wait for this fucking bitch-made response, though. Downing Street, which had been expecting a 20% rate to be imposed, expressed relief to have escaped the higher rate. Keir Starmer's more conciliatory? Is that a word?
What the fuck are you looking at? Yeah, apparently
conciliatory approach to the Trump administration appeared to have paid off. So he bent the knee and got fucked slightly less hard. South Korea's acting president, Han Duck-soo, has vowed an all-out response as Asia's fourth biggest economy reeled from Thursday's imposition of 25% tariff on exports to the US.
Why? Why have they fucked Japan?
That's Korea.
Oh, sorry, Korea. Sorry, I saw the phone.
Japan, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, said Japan is a country that is making the largest amount of investments to the US. So we wonder if it makes sense for Washington to apply uniform tariffs to all countries. No. Does it say an amount? No, it doesn't. Oh, yeah, there we go. Japanese automakers are also bracing for a slump in exports. Goldman Sachs said the levies would have a significant impact on Japanese auto and auto parts makers, as vehicles account for more than 30% of Japan's exports to the US.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's not the actual amount. It doesn't say the amount, but
yeah.
I would imagine, based on the other ones, it's going to be about 20%, 25%, which is going to effectively mean a 20% increase in car prices. And the car prices in America are fucked anyway.
Yeah.
I was watching Dave Ramsey, as I normally do, the other day, and someone had spent $52,000 on a Kia.
What?
Yep.
No. On what? A Kia Sportage? I mean, the reason
They don't know. I don't think the Sportage is over there, but it's a. I don't know what it is.
Just
I
a
know they
standard
love the
Kia.
Kia Soul over there, but
Yeah, that's
I don't know what it is. But yeah,
Jeez.
$52,000 for a Kia is mad. India woke up. What kind of wording is that? India
They were in bed when they received the message.
woke up to the news of a 26% tariff on all Indian goods imported into the US. Trump had singled out India as very, very tough with their own levies and said the 26% was a discounted reciprocal tariff for the 52% tariffs imposed by India.
Ooh.
Okay, I don't have a massive issue with that. Let's see what our Aussie friends did. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said, although no one got a better deal than Australia, the new tariff regime was a hostile act against an ally.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's like on the nose wording.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Hostile act is... When it comes to... They're normally very careful with their wording when it comes to politics.
Who, the Aussies?
No, just
Oh,
politicians.
right,
but
yeah.
yeah.
I'm say the Aussies.
I was going to say that's the Australian politics equivalent of get fucked, mate. It's, Australia escaped comparatively lightly from the new Trump tariff regime, only incurring a blanket 10% tariff.
Yeah.
New Zealand 10%, Canada 25%.
Oh my lord.
Mexico, it doesn't say. Taiwan 32%.
Jesus.
These are not insignificant numbers. Do you know what I mean?
The only thing I do understand is that, like, all economies are an input-output machine. If you just... it's horrible to look at it this way because we're talking about people's fucking lives, but in terms of economics, it's input-output, right? If Trump is trying to protect his country's economy, he needs to ensure that they have an increase of output. They need to be putting out more than they're bringing in. If they don't do that, then he cannot help the American people. So he's doing it in a very brash way and a very, aggressive bull in a china shop business kind of manner. But technically, what he's doing in terms of like fundamental rules of economics, as much as I understand, but Gary Stevenson, if you see this, which you bloody well won't, sir, but if you do, then give us a hand, sir. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topic. Like, I kind of can't knock the maths. He's putting higher costs on countries that they're spending more on to bring goods in. In other words, because the American people are going to say, well, I don't want to buy that anymore. Okay, now we can make something. Now we can make something that we sell, manufacture in the US to create jobs, that then gets purchased by the US population. That is a strengthening move for your economy. It just is.
If you have the facilities.
Well, this is what Trump's trying to say. The same thing when we had the Industrial Revolution. He's trying to say that, okay, we've just kind of given up and said that we can't do that sustainably because we've got the costs are too high. Well, what if I really screw everybody? If I make the costs of the cheaper products too high, then we can justify creating a production arm to this economy. It's a very arse-about-face way of doing it because you're going to fuck your people over whilst having more money to give them to reduce taxes.
And the economy wasn't in a good place anyway.
Whose?
After Biden. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't strong. No. And he's significantly weakened it. It may be getting worse to get better, or it may be the calm before the storm. You don't know. So it's just... I read an article where it said the living wage in America now is approaching $30 an hour. The minimum wage is $7.25.
Wow.
They've been fighting for $15 an hour as a minimum wage for so long that in the time that they've been fighting the cause, the cost of living's doubled.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane.
I didn't know that.
America is such an expensive country.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that a car payments are just a given in America.
Yeah.
More people have them than don't, which is quite rare in this country. I would say that
on finance.
A lot. I would say it's not the vast majority that are on finance here.
We are catching them though, as
materialism. There's a lot more, but
Yeah.
some of the interest rates, because it's all based on your credit, and I know it is to an extent here, but I would imagine that there's more stringent caps, because there was a guy on Dave Ramsey, again, sorry to bring it back to him, but I watch him a lot, who bought a car. It was $72,000. It was like I don't know what it was, Ford something or other.
Buick.
They all have different cars, don't they? But yeah, $72,000 at 27% interest.
Sorry, it says 27% interest on that 72.
Years.
And he's basically bought the equivalent of a fucking Land Rover.
Yeah, it won't even be that. It'll be small Ford Fusion or something like that. Or Mondeo.
I mean, it's laughable because it's crazy.
Yeah.
But that, I guess what that highlights is the difference between a country that focuses on capitalism and is super proud, and it is like ingrained in every aspect of their society. It is, if somebody tries to make shitloads of money, go on you, well done you, which is a nice thing. It's better than going, oh, who's that greedy prick? But if that's the ethos from the ground up, this is what you will have. Prices will soar, because apparently that's good. If you want to be paying the equivalent of what, fucking £57,000 for what is this whatever this $72,000 car is, let's just say in the UK it's the equivalent of a Vauxhall Insignia, like for any of our UK
effectively,
people.
that's probably what it will be. It's not far off.
I mean, I would never. It's not a fair price. It's not. It's It's.
Well, this is the issue: is the dealers put a massive markup on all the cars as well. So they have an RRP and then they have a dealer markup. So a lot of the. I mean, I think Americans are getting wise to it, because there's a lot of issues now in America where cars just aren't selling. And there's cars that were produced in 2021, 2022 that are still sat on the lot unregistered. Wow. So they're being sold as a 2024, 25 car, but were made 3 years ago and have just been sat for 3 years and stuff like that. But like simple, just things like the best-selling car in America, you know what it is?
I actually don't.
Ford F-150.
Is that the best? That's the most amount of units sold?
It was for years. They sold one every like 10 seconds for a while.
That is mental.
Average prices I've been seeing on them now are $90,000. If you were to spend $90,000 here
on a car,
you could probably
M5?
get a lower class McLaren for that sort of money.
Second hand, you can, yeah. Oh, 60 grand, yeah. Second hand with 40,000 miles in it, yeah.
That's the difference. A McLaren over there probably cost you $150,000.
Keep going.
Even second.
Keep going.
Second hand. Do you know what I mean? But you know what I mean. It's the disparity. You know, my car was £3,950. Dan drives a BMW. I won't say what, but he drives a BMW. And what did it cost you?
I paid 14 for it, and I had negative equity on my previous vehicle to clear when I bought it.
Yeah, and it's a nice BMW. It's not a 1 Series. It's a nice BMW. I
can tell you what We Buy Any Car offered me for it 3 months ago. Yeah.
Oh, but it was. Let me guess.
Mm-hmm.
And what year is it?
62.
62.
So it's 13 years old.
I'm gonna say 7.
£5,250. Yeah.
I'll give you 5.
I'll take it. I'm not even joking. I'll take it. This is the way I've had to look at it is that for years prior I had finance vehicles, and I just saw that I had put so much money into the palms of these banks. I was like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing it. And then when I bought my house, I was like, I had some money left over, and I'd had this Passat for 3 years that the boot didn't open for 18 months of that 3 years. Honestly, I loved the car. It was sound. Nothing wrong with it really, but it was just, I was like, okay, I want to change. So I've gone to get finance on that Beamer. Mate, because I just bought the house, all of a sudden I've got 250 grand's worth of debt on my head versus the 125 I had in the shared house I had prior. They were like, yeah, okay, the minimum, also the lowest interest rate that you can get is 12.9%, right? And I'm looking at them thinking, I don't understand how the credit system's based, because at the time I had quite a lot of cash in my bank. I bought the car in the end. I had to buy it outright myself and clear the finance on the other one because I can't justify paying over the odds for something to a bank just because they've lent me the money. But no, I'm not doing it anymore. But now I am in the process now of getting rid of my car and having a company van. I'm going to just drive a van as my vehicle. I don't care enough anymore. Like there's no status to me in a vehicle. There is nothing to it. It's just a personal preference and a sign of that cost X. Well, I don't care what the vehicle cost. I don't mean that as in I'm willing to spend shitloads. The opposite. I'm willing to spend very little. So it's yeah. I mean, my car's got 120,000 miles on it now. I don't think We Buy Any Car will give me that now. They probably give me about $4,500 for a car that is an incredible piece of machinery.
No,
Like,
it's a nice motor.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked after it very well, but there you go.
No. For a lot of reluctant repairs as well.
No, I just get them done. If
I
it needs
know,
doing,
but you don't like doing it.
of course not. I've spent $3,500 on that thing in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
I basically bought your car to put it into my car. What am I doing?
Yeah, it's better than what I did. I bought a car and then it got written off, but I didn't go through the insurance, so I was just out £7,000 and then had to buy my old car back.
I don't know why you did that.
That was like a nearly £10,000
Mistake.
swing.
Yeah. Whoops.
Yep.
Oh well, lesson learnt. Next time, insurance.
Just don't buy a car that's a lot of money.
Or
is what
rare
I've
as
learned.
fuck.
Yeah,
that was the problem.
issue. Yeah, it was,
You bought fucking one of 500.
it was less than that, 301.
Oh Jesus! Well, yeah. What do you expect?
Yeah, it was one of 12 in that colour.
Seriously?
Yeah, so imagine trying to get parts in the right colour.
No chance. No chance. Uh oh.
Yeah, so the world's fucked. We're broke, but we're happy.
Yeah. Fuck 'em. You know what I mean? It's nice. Let us know if you feel the same.
Bye.
Bye.